with the scent of potpourri. Films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at obsessiveviewer.com, and while every episode will always be free, if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for tons of bonus audio content, including TV and book reviews, and immediate reaction movie reviews, Patreon potpourri episodes, movie commentary tracks, and early access to episode content. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and with me today is, of course, tiny and recurring co-host and creator of themoviestate.com, Ben Sears. How is it going tonight, you guys?
Going awesome.
Wonderful.
Nice. We just did a Patreon exclusive recording for the $1 Patreon tier, the OVB roll stuff. A lot of fun stuff. We kind of talked about Jon Stewart and basically did like a long ad for Apple TV Plus. This is not sponsored in any way, but we just basically celebrated the Apple TV Plus catalog of stuff, except for luck. So that was a lot of fun.
Good streaming service.
Yes. So today on the show, we're going to be continuing our Ebert's Great Movies List review series. This is part 14. We're going to be covering The Red Shoes from 1948, The Godfather Part II from 1974, and Dark City from 1998. But first, as I believe Ben was alluding to, some news broke today, it was actually last night that it broke that I'm kind of just flying off the top of my head with this, but basically the merger between Warner Brothers and Discovery has resulted in them canceling projects that were well into production, most notably Batgirl, which was in post-production, I think, and had like a $70 to $90 million price tag, and it was originally going to be on HBOMax as an HBOMax exclusive original movie, and they scrapped it, and it will not be anywhere, which is so weird, and it seems to be kind of indicative of a wider swath of just overhaul of HBO Max. There's we're recording this August 3rd, so we're probably a little bit outdated by the time you guys are listening to this, but there's like going to be an earnings call with Warner Brothers, and it's expected that they're going to kind of talk about revamping some things. So really weird. A lot of people are talking about it. What do you guys make of this news and my just piss poor way of condensing it into audio?
Well, don't shortchange the Scoob sequel too. That is being shelved as well.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what we're all heartbroken over.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're all gonna riot over.
Yeah. Which, it's funny you say that, but like Paul Dini or Dini, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but he's most notably from Batman the Animated Series. He had tweeted, he said, "A great wizard once taught me 2 magic words that will get one through the darkest of disappointments. Shit. Next." And then someone quote tweeted him and said, "Didn't realize or perhaps forgot that the now canceled Scoob spinoff was written by Paul Dini. Also hearing it was close to complete too. This is so absurd." And then Paul Dini actually replied to him and said, "Shit next indeed. Yes, I'm co-writer, but also why cancel a 95% finished holiday movie this close to fall when you're guaranteed kids watching it from right after Halloween until at least New Year's? Makes no business sense, especially as both kids and parents dug the work in progress screening." What is going on?
Yeah, no, sorry. I don't mean to downplay this, what all these people have poured their hearts and souls into for who knows how long. But it's just super, like, even in a vacuum, this is a weird thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I've ever heard of a movie that is that's done shooting
Mm-hmm.
that is a big, like, superhero franchise kind of movie
Yeah.
that's just not gonna come out.
Yeah.
Never being seen. I mean, just take away all the other factors to it, you know, the fact that it's a Latina superhero female
Mm-hmm.
that's made by non-white directors. Not great optics there.
No.
But just everything else around it is just super weird and doesn't forebode well for a lot of things. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Tiny, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before, or at least I've talked before, about how, you know, the conflict between art and business, and Hollywood is, the film industry is really a business that's kind of deals in art more than anything. It's a business first, and we see the repercussions of that all the time. It doesn't mean we don't get good art. It just means the dollar comes first, you know. But this is the most egregious example of it that I can remember.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it had just happened to one movie, I think we could be like, oh, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's happening to a lot of stuff. And it's just bananas. And it seems, I mean, I feel like they should just drop it in theaters. Drop the damn thing. Drop the Batgirl in theaters. You've got Michael Keaton returning as Batman.
Yeah.
The Gen Xers and the millennials would come out in droves just to see that.
And Brendan Fraser's going to be in it.
So, right. Yeah. He's having his kind of renaissance right now. You know, that I think that would be that. I don't know. I guess I'm not a marketing person or whatever, but it's just mind boggling to me.
I can't make sense of it at all in any stretch. And like you said, yeah, that's supposed to be Michael Keaton's like return. And granted, from what I've heard, he makes like a very brief appearance, but it's supposed to be like a big, I mean, that's like the first time him as Batman since Batman Returns. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's just a DC thing because of the whole Scoop thing and all the other stuff, but it just seems so weird. At the end of the day, it seems so incredibly weird that they have an almost completed movie that they have spent the money on. The money has been spent to create this piece of art. It cannot be more, it can't break their bank in any capacity to have them complete it and put it on the streaming service. Like, it does not make any sense. And it's just, it is so bizarre.
No, I'm not a finance guy. I'm not an economics guy. I'm barely a math person. But there's just, I don't understand how this makes financial sense. Like, and not to mention as of this recording, the Flash movie is still going to be coming out despite all of the shit that's going around about that.
That is
which
insane.
costs even more. And from what has come out about it since the news broke, it's like you said that the budget is like $90 million, or it costs $90 million to make. And they were saying that was not big enough to put into theaters, but too big to drop on a streaming service, which just does not make any sense. Like,
no.
You can't see the $90 million on the screen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my God. And it's so weird to me, because that's the reason why it was $90 million, is because they were doing it specifically to premiere it on HBOMax. They said somewhere that it was being made specifically for a streaming platform. That's why, relatively speaking, the budget is relatively small for a big tentpole thing. And then in the next breath, they said that we want like the established IP, and we want the big like DC movies to be blockbuster tentpole movies. And it's like, what? There's so much content for like, why? I don't know. It's just so weird.
And like I don't know how true this is, but I feel like I've heard that early test screenings weren't the greatest. But
Yeah.
you know what else came out this year? Freaking twice was freaking Morbius.
I know. Yeah.
So I don't understand how it how it could be so bad that they had to dump it when Morbius exists.
There's no way that they wouldn't get at least
plenty of other big studio IP garbage. Like the newest Jurassic World movie, which I haven't seen yet. But
you still haven't seen?
Plenty.
Yeah,
No.
it's terrible.
Well, I actually I think I get the math of it, the financials of it, because they were saying how it was going to take. They thought that the marketing campaign could be as much as $50 million for it.
Oh wow!
Right.
And then the reason why it's beneficial to tank it is they can use it. They can write it off on their taxes. And so I'm sure that's a huge credit, but it also means you're not allowed to make a penny off of it. You can't release it in any way, shape, or form. So I kind of get that, but it's like, it's just a shitty thing to do to your artists and your fans.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a filmmaker right now and Warner Brothers comes calling and it's not for like even if it is for a superhero movie or a franchise movie, I'm probably not going to pick up the phone.
Right.
Like they already made people mad last year with the day and date release thing.
Yeah.
But with this, and then, I mean, like we said, we're recording this before this earnings call or whatever, and even more stuff is rumored to be given the axe on HBOMax.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to be working with Warner Brothers or whatever they're going by now.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers Discovery. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also a symptom of over conglomeration. I feel like these companies keep merging and it's really affecting content. It's really affecting the art more than ever. These businesses are getting too big, I don't know. Some people might argue that we're feeling the effects with, Disney and Disney, ESPN, Marvel, Hulu, however many damn companies are all under the Disney umbrella
Fox.
now. It's crazy. And if it works, I don't have a problem with it, but I think we're kind of starting to see the cracks now. I'm not a fan of over conglomeration. It hurts, it hurts, diversity of art. It hurts what fans want. It's about, it becomes more and more and more about the dollar, and that's an unfortunate aspect of that business. And the art of movie making is the dollars are so important. And I think I think this is a symptom of that. It was the merge, them buying Discovery or however the hell that worked. That was just, it was all business, and they didn't give a shit how it affected the art. And that's what we're seeing. It sucks.
Yeah.
All I know is that if they take the Studio Ghibli stuff off of HBO Max, I'm gone.
Honestly, I don't blame you. And that's the thing. That's another aspect to it is, of course, we're talking in a vacuum, and obviously we have no affiliation with the industry or anything, but by all accounts, like, it's if they go the route that is theorized or rumored to be that they are going to purge HBO Max and fold it into Disney or Discovery Plus and have something else entirely, or put a focus on reality television or whatever the hell all the rumors are, it's so bizarre to me, because HBO Max is, by all accounts, or by my perspective at least, a massive success. It is one of the best streaming services around, and it's insane.
At least in terms of content.
Yeah,
quality
absolutely.
content. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's so weird and very discouraging.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just when I had started watching Peacemaker, they better not take it off.
Yeah, I saw that people were tweeting at James Gunn, and he said, "Yeah, Peacemaker is Peacemaker's safe. Calm down."
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
because I still haven't finished it.
Nice. I know I haven't started. I haven't watched Peacemaker. I just didn't really care about the Suicide Squad. Yeah.
I wonder if this is going to lead to some kind of systemic shift in the filmmaking world where these companies might break up a little bit, or you could get a group of artists together that basically just create a new distribution company. like screw you, Warner Brothers, Universal, whoever, screw you. We all have our own production companies. We're going to get together and make our own distribution company, and we're going to underbid and fuck over all of you, and we're going to drive you out of town. And I have no clue if that's even feasible, but I wonder if there's going to be some major business shifts as a result of this.
A group of united artists, if you will.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's basically how it came to be. Is
that's
like
right.
Chaplin and Keaton and all those guys. They didn't want to work with like Paramount and MGM and all of them, and so they kind of formed their own thing. And yeah,
I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did also see, and this is tangentially related, and then we can get into the Ebert stuff, but I did see that apparently Neon, who like they distribute some just quality stuff each year. It's like it's insane, but they were talking, I think that there was something about how they're looking over their financial situation because they're looking like they might need to be bought out at some point, and that's very troubling to hear.
Well, yeah, and they also want to start producing TV.
Oh,
I think that might be part of it.
Okay. We'll see what happens with that. Like I faith, like they're really great. Yeah. So yeah, anything more on this, or should we get into our Ebert reviews?
I'm good.
Let's do it.
All right, awesome. And I know that you guys had said that the audio was kind of weird with the music, but it's fine in the mix, so it should be good. But yeah, hopefully it's not too bad when I play the stinger. But basically, we're going to go into our Ebert's Great Movies list reviews for this episode. The Ebert's Great Movies list is a list of over 300 movies that Roger Ebert wrote essays for, calling them great. And we've got a stinger that we're going to play, and I'm going to play that right now.
No name is more synonymous with film criticism than Roger Ebert's.
Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and children.
People say, do film critics have too much power?
For those who can hear me, I say, do not despair.
We can help a movie. We can help a movie by sharing our enthusiasm. We can't necessarily hurt a movie that is destined to be a big hit anyway.
You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure.
And then Roger Ebert gets up.
What I find very offensive and condescending about your statement is nobody would say to a bunch of white filmmakers, how could you do this to your people?
Let us all unite!
All right, and of course the concept for this review series is that we each select a single movie from Roger Ebert's Great Movies list and review and discuss them in a special series of podcast episodes. Like I said, this is our 14th installment of this series, and one of the quotes attributed to Roger Ebert about this essay series that he did is, quote, "One of the gifts a movie lover can give another is the title of a wonderful film they have not yet discovered. Here are more than 300 reconsiderations and appreciations of movies from the distant past to the recent past, all of movies that I consider worthy of being called great." And yeah, so this is installment number 14, and we've got 3 movies that we're going to talk about, as we usually do. As we always do, we go in chronological order. From release date, we're going to be talking about The Red Shoes from 1948, The Godfather Part II from 1974, and Dark City from 1998. And before we get into it and everything, I think, do we have any stats or anything? Did you guys have anything? I know Tiny had like an average thing that he figured out.
Yeah. I can go ahead and lead with that.
Okay.
So I took I wanted to find the average year of release for the movies that we've been watching on our list so far. Because Roger Ebert's list goes back to the 1920s.
Yeah.
And there's lots of movies from every decade. So,
I think there might be some from the teens too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, it's crazy. And so I was curious, we've all picked some older ones. So I was curious what the average year of release was. And it's a little, maybe a little serendipitous that it's 1969, Summer of Love.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. After 35 movies, 1969.
That's awesome. And yeah, we've covered 39. Did you say 39 or 35?
I have 35, so with these three, we'll be at 38. 38. Hopefully I'm not missing one. I'll feel like an idiot.
No, you're fine. That's crazy. Because like this kind of project kind of came up as, I think Ben and I were talking about it like right before the pandemic hit, and then that delayed it a little bit, and then we finally got the ball rolling, and it's been really fun. It's a really good way to kind of just discover some underrated gems like The Godfather Part II and and one of the other very high profile movies that
The Godfather Part 1.
The Godfather Part 1.
So well, if we've done either 35 or 38, that means that we're at least like 10% done with the series by now.
Yep.
We've been doing it for about 2 years now.
Oh, so, yeah. So
this chugging right along.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Slow and steady. We'll get there. But yeah, it's funny because at the start of it, I was like, oh, it could be really cool. And then like when we're done with this, we can do like another like movie list or something. And I'm like 300, like minimum we'll have 100 installments. But yeah. So anyway, it's a lot of fun though.
Totally.
But yeah, anything else, or should we get into the first review of the night?
Well, I mean, if listeners are so inclined, I have a letterbox list. I forget if I had said this on air last time or not, but I put together a list, and I went back and re-listened to our series and put together a list of all of our official picks for what we would each put on our great movies list and put it into one. So you can find that on my letterbox. I don't know if you guys have cloned that already or not, or if you want to, but
I haven't, but I'll put a link in the show notes to the list and everything. Yeah.
Check it out.
Cool.
Oh yeah. Nice. Awesome. So yeah, we are going to be talking about 3 movies tonight. As we usually do, we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review. The spoiler section will be separated by a clip from the trailer for the respective movie. If you want to kind of navigate that, I have timestamps in the show notes of the episode, which the show notes can be found in your podcast app of choice, whatever you're using. Or if you want to go to the website, it's at obsessiveviewer.com/OV378. So without further ado, the first movie that we're going to be discussing tonight is 1948's The Red Shoes, which was a pick from Ben. Ben, do you want to kind of introduce us to it and tell us why you picked it? And we can kind of dive in from there.
All right. So The Red Shoes, 1948, directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, a.k.a. The Archers. Plot description: a young ballet dancer is torn between the man she loves and her pursuit to become a prima ballerina. And I had mostly just picked this because I had heard a lot about it and never seen it. I don't remember if I had heard anything specific about it, but also because I bought the Criterion 4K Blu-ray.
Nice.
And so I just basically picked this as an excuse to watch it. So
nice. Very nice. And did you know anything about it going in? Because I know that Tiny had watched it and he texted us about it. And I literally, that was the first inclination of anything I had about, like, I had no knowledge of the movie. So what did you know going in?
No, I didn't know anything about it either. Like, I think I remember I texted you guys, like, I didn't know if it was in English. I didn't know if it was a musical. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know any of the actors. I had never seen any of the Archers movies before. So, just basically went into this blind. I think I remember seeing a Letterboxd review or two that mentions the dance sequence, which we'll talk about. But other than that, no, I didn't know anything about it.
Wow. Okay. And yeah, we can kind of from there go around and like Tiny, what did you think of the Red Shoes?
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I was a little surprised. Like Ben, I knew basically nothing about it. And I was really surprised at how well it held up. I feel like the movie has a lot of subtext to it, or a lot of at least underlying motivations that aren't, on the surface. And I thought that was maybe arguably a little bit ahead of its time in that regard. I remember years ago when I was sort of coming of age as a film fan, I was obsessed with Martin Scorsese and was getting my hands on all his movies and watching all his movies, and IMDb was becoming a thing. And so I would just go on IMDb and just read random trivia about, I wasn't even watching something. I would just pick a random movie or a random filmmaker. Nice. And I remember looking at Martin Scorsese's IMDb, and I was like, it's like his favorite movie, and he thinks it's amazing. And I was just like, the fuck is the Red Shoes? I've never even heard of it. But I remember that from 20 years ago, reading about the Red Shoes on Martin Scorsese's IMDb. So here we are, however many years later, because Ben bought a new Blu-ray. I got to watch it. But yeah, I think, the color palette of the movie is really beautiful. I feel like the sets and everything, I can't remember if it was in the trivia or not, but I was curious if they actually just picked some actual opera houses to shoot these scenes in, or if they were sets or what, because it was just all really beautiful. A lot of great locations and all that stuff, and some really good performances. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the movie.
Very nice.
Sorry, Matt, you can talk about it real quick, but first, there's a commentary track on the Blu-ray, and Martin Scorsese pops in a couple times.
Nice.
And Matt, you'll be able to tell me if it's on the Criterion channel or not, because I think you've mentioned before they have commentary tracks on there.
They do, yeah. I have I unsubscribed from Criterion channel to save a little bit of money. I'm gonna go back to it at some point. Yeah. But yeah,
fair enough. But anyway, he talks in it a little bit. I didn't watch the entire commentary, but he mentions that the Red Shoes ballet sequence helped him when he was working on Raging Bull and the boxing sequences. So, just found that really interesting. But yeah, he awesome. Loves this movie.
Huh. That's really awesome. Yeah.
Also, one thing that I learned later is Thelma Schoonmaker, his regular editor, was married to Michael Powell.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't think I didn't really connect with the movie all that much. I respect it for the technical achievement. Like that ballet sequence is just stunning. Like it is hypnotizing. It is incredible. It holds up incredibly well, and it's something that it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this was made in 1948, and they made this just really just elegant and beautiful, kind of psychedelic, like incredibly lengthy just sequence, and it is astonishing. But everything else around it, I just kind of didn't really connect with it. I didn't really feel for it all that much. I kind of felt like the relationship that's referenced in the premise felt a little bit. It was very slow to develop, and some of the conflict that arose from it just felt like it didn't have time to really play out in a significant way. Or time to build toward the way that it kind of works out in significant ways. And And so I just didn't really connect with it, but I totally respect the artistry of it. Yeah. Ben, how did you feel about the movie kind of overall? And do you regret buying the Blu-ray, or do you love it?
No, I love it. I would recommend anyone to buy the Blu-ray, especially in 4K if you're able to, because it looks incredible. Like I tried, I rewatched parts of it on HBOMax on my phone earlier today, and it looks so much better in 4K. It's incredible.
Wow.
Well worth the buy if you are able to. But yeah, I really liked the movie overall. It was really incredible. I think it's a really interesting. I'm always kind of drawn to movies that are kind of about the creative process. And so this was really just right up my alley. And just the way that the Archers depict these characters who are so driven to do these things that they love is, I just really loved the way that they depicted that.
Yeah,
Plus,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah, we'll come back to it, but the ballet sequence in the middle of the movie is just one of the greatest sequences I've maybe ever seen.
Yeah, and even the opening sequence with the kind of flood of students and audience members that are just flying into the theater and getting to the seats, like the choreography of that, the energy of it is undeniable. Like it is incredibly energetic, and it really brings you into it in a pretty unique way. It's a movie that I'll probably have to revisit at some point, because I feel like maybe I didn't give it that fair a shake, but I definitely respect it. But yeah.
Yeah, as the Gen Zers would say, it was serving me Birdman vibes.
Oh, yeah.
The Michael Keaton movie, just because, like Ben was saying about the creative process, it wasn't quite as in depth or candid as Birdman, but I kind of got some notions from that movie watching the Red Shoes. And yeah, I'm the only one who hasn't mentioned the ballet sequence yet, but that was the highlight without question. I can't imagine it in 4K with all the color palette and the depth of it and everything. I think the trivia said that took them 6 weeks to film.
Oh wow!
I mean, that's just unbelievable. I might be off on the time, but it was a while. It took them a long time to film it. But and the filmmaking techniques, for 1948 are pretty impressive. And like I said, it holds up. I'm curious, have either of you guys ever been to a ballet, like in person ballet?
I have. My parents dragged me and my sisters to the Nutcracker when I was, I don't know, too old and too cool to go and see it. Sorry. Yes, Tiny, you're correct. 6 weeks to shoot and employed over 120 paintings.
Oh, wow.
Bananas.
Yeah.
Well, Ben's a snobby son of a bitch. I've been to the ballet. No, but I was sitting there wondering while I was watching it. I was like, do I like ballet? Like, is that what's happening? Because I'm so into this right now. I could not have been more surprised by that. It was, I was really blown away by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I maybe dance people would be able to call me out on this, but I feel like ballet is like one of the most difficult dance techniques or styles to master. Like there's so much control that you have to have over your body and so much precision that goes into it. It's just insane. And this just totally highlighted that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and the wear and tear and the damage that it does to your body too. Excuse me. It's almost like gymnastics. Like if you look at a lot of gymnasts, they're done by the time they're 20, 22 years old. They're done. And I assume it's probably the same for ballet dancers, because it's just havoc on your body.
Yeah. And it's kind of it's a pretty ubiquitous kind of plot thread or themes to explore, and we'll talk about it in spoilers for sure. But I do appreciate the way that it kind of delves into that kind of happiness or having happiness and or acclaim or fame or being the best at something. I mean, it's stuff that I can clearly see influences, like how this movie may have influenced like Black Swan or Whiplash or even La La Land.
Yeah.
I can see its fingerprints all over those movies, and for it lasting this long and having that kind of influence is pretty impressive. Even if I didn't really connect with it on that level, I could recognize that it explored those themes in solid ways with an interesting ending.
Yeah. Earlier, Matt, you mentioned kind of the central relationship in the movie, the romantic relationship. I agree with you. I think it did not feel organic. It felt pretty forced, I think. I think it ultimately worked, but it sort of just came out of nowhere, and it didn't feel didn't feel very like it didn't have a good meet cute or any kind of, there wasn't a ton of meat there. But by the end, I mean, it was, I was on board, but that could have been done better for sure.
Yeah, I had initially rated this 5 stars, and then when I got to thinking of it, I dropped it down to 4.5, just because, like, yes, the relationship between Vicky and Craster, yes, just very much comes out of nowhere in the second half. Like, that's actually kind of part of why I rewatched it, because I almost felt like I missed something. And like, I watched the first half of it, and like, Vicky and Craster have maybe like 2.5 scenes together, and one of them he's like screaming at her, and I'm like, wait. And then next thing you know, they're like in love and on this carriage ride together, telling them how much they love each other, and I'm like, wait, did I miss something?
Right.
But no, it just develops off screen. But it wasn't, a total deal breaker, believe it or not. But I agree, maybe if there was ever a remake, they would probably explore that relationship a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you guys kind of, and maybe this is obvious and I'm just dumb or something, but did you guys kind of get the sense that Lermontov was kind of like in love with Vicky Page a little bit?
I think that is a read of it.
Okay.
And I think that is what I initially thought why he like fired her. But then I remembered earlier when he fired the other 2 players who got married, and it's just, again, it's these 3 central characters all have this drive to do what they do, and his drive is to be the best ballet company, and in his view, he can't have any of his people being distracted, for lack of a better word, by a relationship with each other.
He was in love with her talent, and he wanted to kind of take possession of that at the expense of her happiness. That was my kind of read of it.
Yeah, I was kind of reading it 2 ways. I was like, well, I think he kind of loves her a little. He's kind of in love with her a little bit, and he's sort of pissed that she's not reciprocating that, and she's in love with Craster. But I thought another kind of read on it or interpretation is that she was basically becoming his muse. Like you were saying, Matt, he's in love with her talent. But there's a element of love to a person finding a muse. So that's probably a better description for it, or a better moniker for it, is that she was becoming his muse. But yeah, and then I was kind of, I don't know about blown away, but kind of shocked by the ending. I mean, I thought that was, again, kind of I don't know about ahead of its time, but pretty risky or risque for a movie in the 1940s to have something so brazen and shocking happen at the end. What'd you guys think of that?
We can talk more in detail on spoilers, but I was pretty.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I do want to say though that yes, there is a kind of attraction when someone's amused and everything. Just ask Julia Fox and Uncut Gems.
Nice.
But yeah, the ending, pretty interesting. I was into it. Yeah, Ben, how about you?
Yeah, and I think Ebert theorizes in his essay that perhaps Lermontov might be attracted to or in love with Craster as well. I mean, there's no obvious evidence of it, but it's a possible reading. Sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
I kind of sort of to go along with it, but the costumes in this I loved, especially there's a scene early on where Craster goes to meet Lermontov and he's like eating breakfast and he's wearing this weird like knee length jacket or coat or something. I don't know how to describe it, but it looked pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think
I can't picture it, but yeah, there was some good costume work in the movie for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, do you guys want to go into spoilers?
Yes.
Would the dance sequence be considered a spoiler?
No, I don't think so. We can talk about the dance sequence.
I feel like we need to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
It's like I said, it's one of the greatest sequences I've ever seen. I mean, it goes on for so long, and with something that long, you kind of think like maybe eventually they'll run out of steam, but it just gets more and more creative and more visually interesting and dynamic as you go. Yeah. Like the first time that I watched it, I initially started to question like, how is this working practically? Like what is the audience that is sitting in this theater watching? And then I just realized that it doesn't matter. It's just all this big spectacle and it's incredible.
That is such an interesting read of it too. Like that kind of reaction to think about what the in universe or in movie audience is experiencing, because and like you said, you get to the point where it's like it doesn't matter because it's part of the artistry of it and everything. And just like I think that level of immersion and empathy to an extent, but most of all just immersion in a film is increasingly rare, and to kind of experience that, because it's like a 15-minute sequence and it is like we said, it's mesmerizing. It is absolutely entrancing. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see another version of the movie that doesn't even have the sequence in it, because that's really some of the only ballet that's in the movie. Yeah. And you know, it serves to kind of do exactly what Matt was saying. It's to like enchant us and charm us and let us know that, hey, this is like the greatest ballet of all time. And that's why this is all that leads to the future conflict in the movie. But you know, we don't necessarily as the audience need to see it and need to see what happens. We could just convey it all in other forms, but they chose to take 6 weeks and pour tons of money and time and effort into filming that incredible sequence, which I'm thankful they did, because I'm probably never going to forget it. But it's pretty fascinating that they pulled it off. Yeah.
One 15-minute sequence taking as long as a whole movie can take to shoot. That is right. That is amazing.
And I feel like just about any other movie about a theater production or a ballet or a dance or whatever would save that until the end. Yeah. And I thought that was what was going to happen here, but it was almost in the exact middle of the movie. And I was like, wait, there's still an hour left of this?
Yep. Yeah. That's a really good point too. Yeah. Anytime, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of feel like I need to give it another go, because I've said before that live theater and live productions like that, the mechanics of that, the stress of that, the precision of it escapes me. Like, I don't understand how people can function and work together like as a unit in that capacity to pull off a performance like live on stage. And there are certain movies that handle that and do that kind of thing incredibly well. And basically any theater production you go to is a bunch of that, and it's just really mind-blowing to me. But I think of like the movie Noises Off from like the 80s. Like, that has a similar kind of thing where it's just an incredible, like, fast-paced, just incredibly fast-paced, very choreographed, kind of slapstick kind of thing. And I admire that level of detail and organization in the film medium. And so that's why I'm kind of just a little miffed with myself that my overall kind of reaction to the Red Shoes is, it's fine. It's cool. So I don't know. I have some stuff I got to work out, guys.
It's all good, bud.
Yeah. Anything more on the ballet sequence, or should we go into spoilers?
Good.
All right. Cool.
No, we're good. Just
right.
Again, watch it in 4K if you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I say that like I did. No, I watched it on HBOMax, but yeah, it is definitely a visually stunning movie. But we're going to go into spoilers for the Red Shoes. So if you don't want to be spoiled, check the show notes for timestamps to skip ahead to our Godfather Part II review, or Dark City, whichever you want to listen to. But I'm going to play a clip from the trailer before we go into spoilers for the Red Shoes.
The Red Shoes, daring the original musical that captures all the glamour of the south of France in exquisite Technicolor, blending compelling beauty and high drama with a love story of sheer enchantment, assembling a cast of international stars to endow an enthralling film with their rich vitality, and making the outstanding debut of this or any other year, a lovely red-headed girl graced with all the talents, Moira Shearer.
All right, and spoilers on for the Red Shoes. It ends in a very kind of Shakespearean way, most notably, obviously, Romeo and Juliet, very tragic. How did you guys feel about the ending of the Red Shoes, and how did it color your overall impression of the movie as a whole?
I thought it was really well done and really incredible. I wasn't really expecting that. I thought it was going to be kind of a bit standard, I guess, where it was like, oh, she chose love, one of those kind of deals.
Yeah.
But I think they sold her, they sold her inner conflicts really well. Moira Shearer did a great job with that. She was truly conflicted. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And the culmination of that, when she basically attempts suicide, I mean, I was shocked, and I feel like that's a theme that isn't tapped a lot, especially maybe in 1940s cinema, which I'm not an expert, so that's maybe a goofy statement coming from me. But, that theme exists, obviously. The Phantom of the Opera, the sacrificing for your art is a huge theme of that, of that story and that play. But just to see it, displayed so wantonly in this movie, I was like, holy crap, I did not see that coming. That was really just shocking and amazing. And I really loved it as a creative choice.
Yeah. Ben, how about you?
Yeah, I also didn't see it coming. I probably should have, though, because like they clearly lay out like how the story is going to go early on, like when Lermontov is explaining the Red Shoes ballet and how like the story of it. And I always love secretly when movies kind of do that. almost explicitly lay out like what is going to happen at the end of the movie without you really realizing it.
Yeah.
So I loved how it ended up. Yeah. I kind of like what you were saying, Tiny. I feel like a lot of movies of this era would have made the Moira Shearer character just care more about love than anything else. And her falling in love and finding a man is the ultimate prize for her, you know. There are so many bad movies of this era that is the main goal of the female protagonist, and I'm glad that this wasn't the case with this movie. You definitely, like you said, Tiny, that you definitely get the conflict with her.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. It is definitely an unconventional ending for this era of film and everything. And I definitely see, like I kind of alluded to in non-spoilers, I see the influence that it had on like several movies, but most notably I kind of feel like it definitely inspired La La Land quite a bit with that ending. Not that it's as like tragic and everything, but it is very much a kind of downer ending in the grand scheme of things. And I just really, here's one of the big hiccups I have with the movie, or one of the big hangups I have with it, is that I feel like I'm gonna butcher his name, the director guy, Lermontov. His kind of controlling nature and his, like that scene on the train, one of the scenes on the train, I wanted more of that dynamic, and maybe I missed it. Maybe I missed that kind of admiration for her gifts and everything, and the more outspoken, like, yeah, you shouldn't do this, you should do this. No one will ever dance the red shoes like you do. You need to recognize that as a gift and everything, and go for it and all that. Like it's this weird controlling aspect, or this really weird controlling sort of behavior, but you kind of understand his point of view, even if it's abhorrent in a certain respect. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he doesn't come across as a total monster, which definitely helps. I feel like a lot of other movies would just make him just a total asshole.
Yeah.
And just totally controlling, and you never really get on his side. So, yeah.
Yeah, like Vincent Cassel's character from Black Swan.
Oh, yeah.
The ballet director. He's fairly despicable in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've seen that.
Yeah, me too.
So,
yeah. Anything else in spoilers? That's kind of brief, but I mean, anything else we've got to say in spoilers? I know that there was a separate like sequence, I think, where it was to Swan Lake, I think. And I love anytime that piece of music is in a movie. So I enjoyed that. Yeah. Anything else on spoilers for the Red Shoes?
No, I think I'm good.
No.
All right, cool. Well, as we normally do, we probably should have done this before going to spoilers, but whatever. We're going to go around the horn, give our thumbs up, thumbs down rating, and decide whether or not it would be on our own personal great movies list. And Ben, since this was your pick, I'm going to save you for last, and I'm going to get us kicked off, and then we'll go Tiny and then you. So I would say that specifically because of the kind of once the relationship is in full swing, and once that plus the 15-minute ballet sequence, the artistry of that, the techniques of that, because of those, I would give it a thumbs up. Unfortunately, I would not put it in my great movies list personally. And I think that I would replace it with, I'm Honestly, I would. This could be kind of, I don't know, maybe sacrilegious. I'm not sure, but La La Land. I've talked about it a lot, so I kind of just love the chemistry of that movie. So I would replace it with La La Land, and the cinephiles listening will, come at me with pitchforks.
That's cool.
Yeah. Tiny, how about you?
I gave it 4 stars out of 5, which again, I was a little surprised that I liked it that much. I would put it on the great movies list. I think there might be a better movie out there that's sort of in these themes that I just haven't seen, but this one's great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Ben, how about you?
Yeah, like I said, I gave it 5 stars initially, 4.5 stars after I thought about it a little bit more. Maybe I could bump it back up to 5 at some point. We'll see. Nice. Yeah, absolutely on my great movies list. Can I ask, we didn't really talk about this, but I'm assuming this is the first movie of the Archers that you guys have seen?
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I'm, at least off the top of my head, familiar with what, like, their other work or anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't think I've seen anything from them.
They have, I think, at least 2 movies on the Ebert list. They have The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp and Peeping Tom, which, again, I know nothing about either one of them. So, but I'm anxious to watch more of their stuff for sure. I know they had another Criterion movie that just came out or got announced recently, The Tales of Hoffman, which again I know nothing about, so maybe I'll buy it, maybe I won't. We'll see.
Nice. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they've got. So yeah. Also, I think I figured out what the audio problem was that I was having, so I think we're good. But yeah, so I think that's it for our review of The Red Shoes. It's available on HBOMax and on Criterion, and on 4K and everything. So check that out. Now we're going to go into our second review of the evening, which is my pick, which was 1974's The Godfather Part II, which, like I said, came out in 1974. The premise is the early life and career of Vito Corleone in 1920s New York City is portrayed, while his son Michael expands and tightens his grip on the family crime syndicate. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, written by Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, who wrote the original novel. Cast includes Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, John Cazale, and Talia Shire. It was released December 18th, 1974, and the reason that I picked it was because I picked The Godfather last time, and I had not seen The Godfather Part II in many years, and rewatching The Godfather, getting to see it in the theater earlier this year for the 50th anniversary, just really made me want to kind of delve more into the saga of it and everything. And yeah, so that's kind of my history with The Godfather Part II and my reason for picking it. What is your guys' relationship with The Godfather Part II, and how did you come to it this time around? Ben, do you want to get us kicked off?
So this was actually the only the second time that I've ever seen Part 2.
Nice.
I had only seen Part 2 a couple of years ago. And I like it. I don't think it, I'm sorry to get ahead of it, but I don't think that this is better than Part 1. I know that there's a subset of people out there who believe that, but I am not one of them. But I still think it's great. I think it's really interesting, really fascinating continuation of these characters. And a lot of the things that work so well in Part 1 are working just as well, maybe better in some regards in this version. So, yeah.
Nice. Tiny, how about you? I know that you've seen this probably the most times out of all of us, I would think. Am I right in that?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, never mind then.
this is maybe the third time I've seen it.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
I can't imagine it's more than that. Yeah, but I also think it's great. It's really good, and I'm actually aligned with Ben. I don't think it's better than the original, and actually, I would go further to say that I don't think it even is on par with the original. Still a damn good movie, but the original movie, the original Godfather is just practically perfect. I mean, I can't find anywhere to deduct points from that movie, if you will. But there's stuff that I can criticize about part two, at least compared to the first one. So, but yeah, it's a great movie. I was it was so interesting to see Michael Corleone fully embedded as the Don now, and fully bought into the life of a criminal, of a crime boss. Because one of the most interesting things about the first Godfather is his evolution, his character evolution, because he's very quiet and regarded and almost innocent in the first movie, and he evolves into a gangster. But we don't get a huge glimpse of him in the first one. But in the second one, he's full bore. He is full on the Don now. And that's interesting to watch, to see him, further his development, or just, fully give in to that, I guess. So that's one of the most interesting things about the movie for me. I think it gets pretty slow. Like the first movie, pacing wise, isn't a fast paced movie, but it's so wildly entertaining and fascinating the entire time. Every scene, every frame is fascinating. But I feel like there's more than a few parts of part two where it gets a little, I wasn't too interested in it, and it was just a little boring, and kind of dragged the story down for me. And I wasn't that into it. But overall, it's incredible to see these characters again, and watch these titans of cinema act with each other. It's really incredible. So it's still a great movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there on all accounts, really. The thing that I found kind of surprising was I was expecting it to blow me away, because I hadn't seen it in several years, and I was expecting it to be on par or maybe even better than the original. But having seen the original so recently, and in a proper, I saw it in Dolby in the theater, that's incredible. I wrote on Letterboxd that this is a movie that is incredibly difficult to judge, because it is a continuation and companion piece to literally one of the greatest things to grace the film medium. It's so hard to judge it. So my initial reaction when I rated it on Letterboxd was, yeah, I ended up rating it 4 stars, and I just didn't feel like it was as compelling and strong as the first movie. But despite that, I recognize that this is better than most movies. And it is an interesting juxtaposition. I think one of the faults of the movie, or one of the failings of the movie, or one of the things that kind of drags it down a little bit, is also one of its greatest strengths in the juxtaposition of young Vito Corleone and Michael in quote unquote present day, and that juxtaposition of the two of them as we see Vito's rise as he becomes like the Don, while we are also watching Michael, his rise further into being this criminal, crime boss guy, but also his humanity chipping away. It's really, really interesting to see those side by side. But at the same time, I feel like having these two stories running concurrently takes away some of the finesse of both stories themselves. By the time we get to Vito's big moment at the end that kind of sort of defines him. It's the conclusion of his arc in this storyline. I feel like it feels almost not necessarily like an afterthought, but it feels like I wish we would have seen more. Like, I wish we would have seen more of the build up toward that. Same with the thing with, like what happens with Michael. I really like on paper the trajectory of his story and his arcs and everything, but I also feel like the Congress, like, subcommittee thing kind of felt like, I kind of feel like that needed to be a bigger deal. And I don't know, it just kind of felt like it was, by doing double duty with these two storylines, I feel like there's a little bit of pacing and storytelling issues that kind of come up that were absolutely not present at all in the first movie. Like, the first movie is, like Tiny said, a near perfect movie. Like, I can't find like anything wrong with it, really. It's that good. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah,
it's funny that you both of you guys mentioned that this kind of feels a little bit slower than the first one. When I vaguely remember us talking about part one and talking about how there aren't very many action scenes, and part two has more action scenes.
Yeah.
But it is definitely, like, I had forgotten that this is 3 hours and 20 minutes before I started it.
Me too.
And I was kind of dreading watching it when I realized that. And I would agree that you start to feel those 3 hours and 20 minutes as it goes on.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what I would cut out from this, because it feels very much as a whole. But it is, you definitely start to feel it as it goes on. I do like that they could have very easily just done The Godfather again, but they didn't in a lot of ways. And what I find fascinating about this is this came out 2 years after the first one.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they had planned, I should have done my research. I don't know if they had planned on making a second one so quickly, or if there was a second book that this was kind of going off of. I know the first book, there are parts of this that are in the first book. So they kind of had that ready to go. But I don't know if the other parts they had had something to base it off of or what.
I want to say, and I can't say with any certainty, but I feel like most of this movie is comprised of stuff that was is in the novel that wasn't included in the first movie. Like, at least all of Vito's kind of backstory, because I think he goes into depth with that.
That stuff is definitely in the book, but the stuff with Michael definitely is not.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Tiny, did you feel the runtime in this movie?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I think seeing the genesis of the Corleone family, family in italics, if you will, was really was great, and I seeing him come to the United States and Robert De Niro in that role and all that was the young Clemenza and everything. That was great. It's great to see it, and I wouldn't take that out of the movie. It was fantastic. I think what really bogged the movie down was it was a lot of the just the whole deal with Lyman Roth and the Cuba stuff. The Cuba stuff. I mean, I was just like, I could not follow it, and I feel like a lot of in the first movie, the conflict with the new drug guy, Sollozzo, thank you. Was a little bit difficult to take all in and get all the details, but you could follow the thread fine.
Yeah.
You know, the main themes of it and the main thread of it you can follow and understand. But the whole Lyman Roth business deal thing, I was like, I don't really Hyman Roth, thank you. I don't really know what's going on with that. And it wasn't particularly interesting. I just couldn't get on board with it.
And he kind of drops out of the movie for a long time and then pops up kind of toward the end, and it does not feel as cohesive as that first movie was as a whole.
Yeah, there are so many more new characters that you have to get used to. And not only that, but figure out like who their alliances are with, who they trust or who they don't trust, how they relate to Michael, what Michael wants to get out of them, if anyone is telling the truth towards him, all of that. There's a whole lot of stuff that you have to get acclimated with. Plus you have this whole mystery with that starts out early with whoever tried to assassinate Michael and someone betrayed him. But and that also, it's a weird kind of through line through the movie, because Tiny, like you said, that first movie, you can follow the threads. Even if it's kind of convoluted in some parts, it is still, by the sum of its parts, it is an incredible movie and an incredible piece of storytelling. With this, it's contending with this relatively straightforward narrative that's spurred by the assassination attempt early in the movie, and that feels like it's kind of separate from everything else in a sense, or everything else seems kind of disconnected from each other. Because I don't, like, off the top of my head, I can't connect that to the Hyman Roth stuff. I can't connect that to the subcommittee stuff and everything. Obviously, I can't, sort of can't connect that to his marital problems. Like, I just can't. I wish that it was more cohesive with all of the threads there. And when we have so many kind of disparate elements in that plot line, like in any other movie, that's a big hurdle to overcome. But when we consider that this is, I don't know how much of the runtime breaks down this way, but by all accounts, it's 50% of the movie, because we also have this entire other flashback thing, which is the more compelling part of the movie for me. And also, I just gotta say, like, it's gorgeous. Like, I love the way I love the way that the movie shifts tone visually. Like, it has this almost sepia tone in the Vito storyline that kind of gets like more and more or less and less sepia tone and more just regular, atmosphere visuals and everything. At least that's what it seemed like to me. But yeah, it kind of seemed a little bit jumbled for me, just a tiny bit, not to further annoy the cinephiles listening.
Yeah, I feel like the attempts, Michael Corleone's attempts to legitimize his family's name and his family businesses are what drags down the whole trilogy, because that's like the least interesting part of this movie, the whole Hyman Roth stuff. And then in the third movie, that's a large part of the movie is his attempt to legitimize the Corleone family, and a lot of people don't even like that version or that part. But I think they could have amplified or expanded on the whole Frankie Pentangeli. That whole conflict could have been really interesting, and that juxtaposed with the flashbacks to Vito Corleone coming of age and becoming the man that he was, mixed with Frankie Pentangeli, and that whole conflict would have been a really good back and forth. But it just got all bogged down in the business dealings and stuff like that really wasn't that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And like I said, I don't really care too much for the Cuba stuff, but I will say the New Year's Eve scene in Cuba is fantastic. I love the way that plays out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, them being there during the revolution, that was like a ballsy choice and really kind of incredible to watch. So yeah, it had that going for it, but the reason for them being there was just like, okay, this is cool, but why the hell are we here?
Yeah, it just seemed a little bit too expansive in terms of the scope of the movie, considering that the first movie, from what I remember, I mean, it was New York and Sicily.
And there's the scene in California.
Oh,
with
yeah,
the producer. But
yeah, right, yeah, and maybe a brief stint in Nevada as well. But it's not like it feels like this is a little bit more locale based, by my estimation, and it just kind of seemed like, okay, that's like you're throwing so many things at the movie, at the audience, that it's kind of not hard to keep up, but it's hard to hold your attention. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'll also say, I want to talk about the performances a little bit.
Yes.
Al Pacino, it's such a, it's not obviously not a departure from the first movie, but it's such a different performance than the first movie. Like I said, he's gone full gangster in this one, and he's so dark and detached in this. And, I can only imagine in the context at the time of the early to mid 70s when he was practically unknown in the first movie. This is only 2 years later, know? And I feel like he was, this is all speculation, but I feel like he was just acting the fuck out of this movie as kind of a screw you to people who were like, well, maybe he had one good performance in him, or maybe it was a fluke. And he was sitting here like, it's not a fluke. I'm the shit. I'm going to go down as probably one of the best actors ever.
Yeah.
So he was fantastic. And I also wanted to point out Diane Keaton again.
Yeah.
It really, my wife and I ended up watching part 3 as well. She had never seen any of these, and so she was like, well, we watched the first 2, let's watch the third one. I was like, all right, let's go ahead.
Nice.
She's got in 10 hours between 3 movies, she's on screen for like an hour. I mean, she does not have a ton of screen time, and she frankly doesn't have a lot of lines or a lot to do in this whole trilogy, but she manages to be so relevant and so memorable in these movies. She does a lot with what she's given, and we'll probably talk about it in spoilers, but there is a remarkably powerful scene in this movie.
Yes.
And she's just on point in it. She's phenomenal. So it's amazing what she achieved with how little she had as far as screen time in this whole trilogy. And I'm super impressed with her.
I absolutely agree with that. That one scene in particular, I had forgotten about it. And when the context is brought out for that scene, I kind of audibly gasped a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, oh wow, okay. And we'll talk about that in spoilers, but yeah, she was incredible. Yeah,
I'll 100% agree with all of that, but also John Cazale. I had forgotten to mention during part 1, I had thought that he was in part 1 a lot more than what he was, but he just fully runs with it here. He's fantastic. And both him and Al Pacino the next year, Dog Day Afternoon. So just fantastic 70s for both of them.
Absolutely.
While we're talking about the performances, I did think this was interesting. I've got the Oscar nominees from this pulled up here. De Niro wins supporting actor, but the other nominees, as far as actors, Al Pacino did not win. Michael Gazzo was nominated, Lee Strasberg, and Talia Shire.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of interesting to me because from what I remember, I don't think Talia Shire is in the movie all that much.
No.
Or has all that much to do.
Right.
That's so weird that wait, was she nominated over Diane Keaton?
Yeah.
What the? Okay. That's, I don't like that. That's, oh, yeah.
Yeah, he, and sorry, Michael Gazzo, it's not fresh in my mind, but I remember him being decent in this. He plays Pentangeli.
Oh, okay.
Pentangeli.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, he was good.
Just an interesting bit of nominees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Brando won for the first one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that the one of the only times two actors have won for playing the same character?
It's not the only, but yeah, one of the only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can't think of the other example. I think I know what it is, but I don't want to say it out loud because I don't want to sound like an idiot.
The Joker.
Yeah.
And Anita from West Side Story.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think those are the only times, but those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I also think that it's just interesting to me that like a sequel was made of this. Like I don't know how many sequels existed in 1974 to popular movies or unpopular movies. I mean, like sci-fi movies and horror movies or monster movies, obviously, but you know, a big prestigious, critically and popularly loved movie just didn't really, I don't think really got a sequel all that much.
Yeah, the only other one I can think of, and I haven't seen either of these movies, is, and let me double check. Well, never mind. Well, sort of. The Sting in 1973 and The Sting 2. I thought The Sting 2 was, I thought that came out quicker, but that was a decade later. Yeah, that's interesting. And there's also, of course, Chinatown and The Two Jakes. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know about that one.
Oh, yeah. The Two Jakes was in 1990. And Chinatown was in 74. Which kind of, to kind of go back to the performances a little bit, I'm now kind of curious to rewatch The Godfather Part 3. In particular, I want to see, and I have it, but I want to see the Coppola re-edit of it, the Godfather Part 3, or the Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, just to see how it stacks up. But I know that it's not good. And one of the things that I'm kind of curious about or intrigued about to kind of revisit it is, like, I remember, you know, Godfather Part 3, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has the iconic Al Pacino line, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. And like, I have that in my head, and sure, it's probably not maybe it's not as exaggerated, but also I watched Heat a few months ago, and the whole she's got a great ass scene. Like, I'm curious to rewatch The Godfather Part 3, because I want to know, since that's 90s Al Pacino, if he goes full Al Pacino, because that is in such stark contrast to his performances in both of these installments of The Godfather, because he is so measured and so introspective, and he's not bombastic, and it's just he gives unbelievably good performances in both of these movies. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes with 90s Pacino.
Yeah, I've never seen either version of Part 3, so
interesting.
I want to see that. Yeah.
I'm guessing it's not on Ebert's list.
So I just watched Part 3, and I don't think he's full Pacino, but he's getting there.
Gotcha.
He's got a couple of those zingers where he gets real throaty and shouty, but he's good. And I think Part 3 kind of gets a bad rap. I think I actually think it's a good movie. I don't think it's bad.
Nice.
It's just that the first one is basically perfect, and the second one is really damn good.
Yeah.
But this one's just it's good. It's a good movie. It's kind of an interesting wrap up for everything. I enjoyed it actually. Sofia Coppola, not very good. Andy Garcia, terrific. Dan Keaton, good. Al Pacino, good. So there's obviously things to criticize about, and it's not anywhere near as good as the first two. But I recommend watching it. I think it kind of gets a bad rap in my opinion.
Nice.
Yeah, I plan on watching it soon.
Nice. Yeah, me too, when I can carve out the time. I remember being very interested in the kind of Catholic Church aspect of it, because isn't it some like big thing with him going against the Catholic Church or something?
Yeah, he's trying to work with them.
Yeah. Should we go into spoilers for The Godfather Part 2?
Sure.
Super quick, I have the trivia pulled up, and I feel like it's relevant given R.I.P. James Caan.
Yes.
But it says here, James Caan asked that he be paid the same amount of money to play Sonny at the end of the film in the flashback as he was for Part 1, and he got his wish. So
that is wild, because they had to kill off screen one of the actors or one of the characters. Clemenza, yeah, because the actor wanted more money, I believe. And that's wild. Wow.
I think Robert Duvall wanted a ridiculous amount of money too.
Yeah. He wanted. I think
because he's in this, right? He's in Part 2.
Yes, I think you're thinking of Part 3.
I'm thinking of Part 3. He wanted like $10 million or something.
Yeah.
I mean, because the movie was basically a cash grab, Part 3.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not doing that unless you really shell out some dough. So he's not in it. But I was confusing them.
Yeah, I feel like part of that also, or maybe this is apocryphal, or maybe it's just something that I'm imagining or projecting, but I think that part of it was that the original concept for Part 3 was going to be about is it Hagen? Tom Hagen or Hagen?
Yeah.
Tom Hagen taking over the family and everything. Like the transfer of power, basically. And I think he tried to leverage that to get a bigger payday for it, and then they scrapped that idea and just did whatever they did for 3 and wrote him out of it. Which, if that is the case, if it's not something I'm just pulling out of my ass, that sounds like the much more interesting movie than what we got with 3 from my memory. But yeah. All right. So should we go into spoilers?
Yes.
You guys ready?
Sure.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to go into spoilers for The Godfather Part 2. If for some reason you haven't seen it and don't want to be spoiled, check the show notes for timestamps. But I'm going to play a clip from the trailer, and then we're going to go into spoilers for The Godfather Part 2.
The history of 2 generations of crime. The drama of absolute power and the men who violate it. The Godfather Part 2.
What is your name?
Don Vito Corleone and his son Michael both had seen the ones they loved most cut down before their eyes. Both had killed as an act of vengeance.
So, spoilers on for Godfather Part 2. Something that I kind of feel like before we get into the actual spoiler aspect, I want to kind of touch on Robert De Niro's performance and how insanely good it is. Like, I felt like he was absolutely magnificent in the movie. Definitely kind of exuding that power that Vito was always going to have, but working toward building that up. I thought that he did just an incredible performance. How did you guys feel about De Niro?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tall order to go against, to live up to what Brando did in the first one.
Yeah.
And it is a full embodiment of the later version of Vito Corleone. It's really fantastic. There's a lot of small, subtle things that he does that are just really smart that I don't know if any other actor would have been able to do or would have thought to do. You really get a sense that he would eventually become this well-respected, well-liked, but also feared person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Tiny, how about you?
Oh yeah, it's pretty epic performance. I'm really glad that it didn't. Not that I would expect this from De Niro, but I'm really glad that his performance didn't devolve into like an impression.
Yeah.
Of
Brando.
Sorry, yeah, of Brando as Vito Corleone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was he made it his own, while still respecting that original performance. Yeah, he was great. The subtlety of it, I love how he's so, because you know he's so calculated in the first movie. Brando as Vito Corleone is so calculated, and he doesn't. You get the sense from his character that he only says exactly enough of what he needs to say. He doesn't say. He doesn't throw in superfluous words and adjectives and verbs. He's very calculated, and every word matters and is carefully chosen. Not to say he doesn't say much, because he speaks his mind, but he's just so calculated. It's really impressive. And De Niro continued that. I mean, there's, you know, pivotal scenes where he meets the kind of like collection guy, who's he's racketeering without doing much. I don't remember that character's name, but he meets him in the front of the truck, and you can just see the gears turning in his head, and he's barely saying a word the whole time.
Yeah.
But he's just like, this guy's going down. He's like, I'm going to spin this to my favor, and this guy's going down. And that's just such a great part of the character that both actors were able to basically perfect to an amazing degree. Yeah, really good performance.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. There is a level, like one of the things I really loved about the movie, like I said before, is that juxtaposition of Michael and Vito, and Vito starting, like, basically creating this empire or creating this syndicate, like crime syndicate, essentially. Really just the start of it, but the level of the movie makes a point to really show the family aspect of it. He cares for his family, and that is juxtaposed with Michael being so disconnected, and like with Tom telling him, like, oh, I bought Anthony a little remote control car that he can ride and everything. So that's what you got him for Christmas and all that. And then he's so disconnected, and his whole arc is about the lack of humanity or the disappearance of humanity in Michael Corleone, as kind of compared to the family aspect and family, the start of the beginnings of Vito's morals, his there's a word that I'm looking for, his kind of the things that he holds dear.
Code of ethics.
His code of ethics, yes. And how Michael is not following that code of ethics, or it's how he is destroying his humanity so much so that the culmination being he has his brother murdered. It's really interesting, and I think that's what I like most about the movie. I just kind of wish that the disparate elements work together a lot better. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of Coppola's smartest decisions was actually just not including the young Vito stuff in part one, because it wouldn't have gelled together as nicely.
Yeah.
Even if you would have taken the exact same scenes here and Robert De Niro had like just copy and pasted them into part one.
Yeah.
Even if you would have done that, you wouldn't have that juxtaposition of how Vito is rising to power while Michael is losing his power or losing his humanity. You have that here, and it just works so much better. Because like the young Vito stuff is in the first book, so he could have put it in the first one, but he wisely chose not to.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. That his coming of age had to be separate from the first movie, because he was really established as an icon in that first movie, and to see his genesis in this one made it more powerful, I think, in the sequel. That was a good creative choice. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe I don't know when it was, maybe I think early 90s, Coppola cut it into a chronological, like TV, like film for TV, basically. So it's like the complete novel or whatever. It's the Godfather saga. And so it's chronological. So it starts with young Vito, then goes to the Godfather and Godfather Part II. And while watching this, I kept thinking, like, man, it would be really interesting to watch that version of it, of these two movies cut together in that way. But the more talking it out and talking about how Part II, how the dual narrative of Part II reflects each protagonist in unique ways, I can't see that being a very interesting viewing experience, because it's very much like young Vito and Michael in Part II are so inextricably tied together that that's the movie. That's the theme of the movie. So yeah, are you guys aware of that TV edit? And would you be interested in watching it at some point?
No, I had no idea that existed, but yeah, I think it'd be an interesting character study. Sure.
Yeah, no, that's news to me. Maybe they should put it on Paramount Plus.
I was thinking that too. I was hoping that they did. I looked for it, but no. So that's a bummer. But yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe they might do something like that for the anniversary for Godfather Part II in 2024. So I can only hope. Yeah. So the kind of end of the movie, twofold. There's Vito getting his revenge, which I felt was really incredible. Like, the scene was really incredible. But I feel like that just kind of comes up, and like it's established that he's doing the whole olive oil stuff, the business and everything. But I really wish that was more at the forefront of the Vito plot, because like I remember that scene from when I saw this when I was in like high school or whatever. And I remembered, like, I think throughout the years I've been thinking like, oh, it's all heading toward this. Like, the entire arc is him just calculating how he can get back to Italy and kill the guy who killed his parents. But it kind of, this might again be sacrilege, but it kind of feels like the movie is just like, okay, well, we ended the first movie with, the assassination juxtaposed with the the multiple assassinations of the heads of the 5 families with the communion scene. So we need to do something with this, and this is where we can just not necessarily plug in the death there, but it just kind of felt like it wasn't led to all that well. Although again, it does kind of mirror or it's juxtaposed well with Michael's final act in the movie, killing Fredo. Yeah, I don't know. How did you guys feel about both of those parts of the finale of the movie?
Yeah, I think it felt like Vito killing the Don who killed his parents was I think the movie was telling us that we're supposed to feel that this is morally justifiable, right? This is almost an act of defense, or at least justifiable revenge, and juxtaposing it with Michael having Fredo killed is, I don't know about the exact opposite, but it's, I think most people would agree that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And he has remorse about it later on, but it's it just I think it helps to exemplify just how cold Michael is, and just a joyless shell of a person that he is, and really just his coldness is the main thing, which comes up in some other scenes too. But I think the placement of that, I think it kind of works together. Maybe not as obviously not as iconically as the assassinations in the first movie, like you were talking about, but I think it kind of works on a level. Yeah.
The whole both movies to this point are just all about, you don't do anything to go against the family, or the family is the number one thing. And you get that Vito is killing this guy because of his family and because he's sticking up for them. And to juxtapose that with the ultimate sin of Michael having his brother killed is just a really interesting and really fascinating way to pull that all together. I think, if I remember right, in part 1, someone says, don't ever do anything against this family, or don't ever speak up against the family, something like that. And just the way that comes together here is really great.
I actually,
and part of, I guess, part of why I understand people love this one more than the first one.
I think that actually, I think in the first movie, I think he actually says that to Fredo. I think that's when,
what I was trying to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. If memory serves, I think it's when he's showing too much respect or fear for, I think maybe it's Mo Green, in Nevada. And then he says don't ever go against the family again, or whatever.
Don't ever take sides with anyone against the family ever again. Ever.
Yeah.
That's a famous, I think I mentioned it when we talked about it last time. That's a famous line in my family. My cousin used to say that all the time, with trivial shit. I was like, this doesn't taste very good. When we were having dinner, he's like, hey, don't ever take sides against the family with anyone ever again, ever. And we would just fucking die laughing. So yeah, I always remember that line.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, at least Michael had the respect to wait until his mother was dead.
Yeah, that makes it justifiable. I love that.
Yeah.
The mental gymnastics that gangsters do to try to justify things. Yeah.
Yep. Let's talk about the Diane Keaton scene. The reveal that she had an abortion and not a miscarriage is, again, it is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, for sure. Her performance is just outstanding, and and it's kind of an interesting show of power, of the power of Michael, in that, from my estimation, my read of it is that after he like lays into her and screams at her and says like, you're not going to take, I'll do everything in my power, you're not going to take this away from me or anything, you're not going to take my kids. And then later we see how she's having like basically a supervised visitation with the kids, and just the heartbreak of that is very, very palpable. And it's, I mean, Diane Keaton's performance in there is incredible. It's just a very interesting show of power, and the lengths that Michael will go to kind of flex his power and utilize his power and not be, you know, he's not someone to be truffled with. But yeah, anyway, it's a very powerful scene. But then I kind of feel like, I'm gonna let you guys talk, I'm sorry, but I kind of feel like part of that is maybe a little undercut by, and there's a couple of scenes in the movie that also does this kind of same thing. The references to the first movie, like, for example, the kind of button on that scene is that she's standing in the doorway when Michael comes in, because she's being hurried out because he's on his way and he does not want to see her. And then he closes the door in her face and she cries out and everything. It's like, it's kind of like the movie going like, oh, remember that last scene from the first movie? Now it's him that's closing the door. It's like, I don't really get that. But then there's a couple of lines like Vito saying like the original version of his, like, I'm going to make him an offer you can't refuse. Certain things like that doesn't really mix well with me. But how did you feel about Diane Keaton and everything that I just word vomited onto the podcast?
It's some of the best parts of the second movie. I just that scene is so powerful in the hotel room where she confronts him and tells him what happened and wants to take the kids away and leave. That's just, I mean, that's before, that's before Pacino went full Pacino. Yeah. And that performance, his reaction is incredible and acted so well. It's actually to the point where it almost feels like Al Pacino actually hit Diane Keaton. Yeah. It almost feels improvised, like it wasn't in the script or something, and she was totally surprised by it. And he that's what it feels like. I mean, it felt so genuine, and just the way the anger boils over in him is just insane. Yeah. And Diane Keaton stands her ground. She's so good. But the equally, maybe almost equally as good a scene as the one you were talking about, where she's visiting with her kids with Connie kind of supervising it basically. Yeah. And he shows up, and God, just the absolute coldness of him closing. And it's not like he just goes over and closes the door. He is deliberately making eye contact with her the whole time. And he closes that door so slowly and doesn't say a word to her. His expression doesn't change. It is the coldest thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's such a brutal thing to do. That was amazing to me. Those two scenes together, some of the best in the movie, and just really chilling. Yeah. Really incredible. Yeah. What did you think, Ben?
Yeah. Cosign 100%. Nice. I don't know what more I can add, but the movie just wouldn't work as well without Diane Keaton's performance. Just even those small little bits, just really fantastic. And she really builds off of what little we get of her in part one, just like John Cazale. Yeah.
And how'd you guys feel about the murder of Fredo and in the end scene, really, the final scene, that flashback to the family dinner, and then the cut to, Michael alone and kind of contemplating things. Like, how did you feel about how that book ended, or how that capped off this continuation of the story of Michael Corleone?
I really liked the imagery of Fredo's death, his murder, if you will. The obviously the audio is really poignant, and it's a very isolationist kind of scene. Michael's kind of on his own, and it's the imagery is just pretty powerful from that scene. But it's not particularly memorable in any other way. For example, it's not as memorable as the hospital scene in part one.
Yeah.
The visual tension of that scene, it's not quite as incredible as that, but I don't think it's supposed to be either. No. And then gosh, what was the other part? You talked about the ending, the kind of final scene with him just sort of sitting in a chair by himself. I think it just solidifies the loneliness that he's created for himself. It's not, I don't know if I would say tragic, because it's almost like, your actions have brought you to this, and this is really what he kind of deserves.
Yeah.
But it's a little, it's harrowing to watch it. Yeah.
As Gen Z would say, he fucked around and found out. Ben, how did you feel about the ending?
Yeah, just brilliantly directed, brilliantly plotted. From the aforementioned Cuba scene, that Fredo is screwed, but you don't really know how it's going to happen. And like Tiny said, the isolation of Michael, he doesn't even have the guts to kill him himself.
Yeah.
And that Fredo is probably going to die, but the way that Michael kind of squirrels his way out of doing it or being there is just really brilliant. And to speak about the flashback, I really liked it at the time. And now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I am kind of wondering if you guys think that maybe it's a little unnecessary. You definitely get, the whole thesis statement of the movie is how Michael has drifted so far apart from where he was at the beginning of part one. Yeah. And I wonder if the flashback is kind of emphasizing that a little too much. What do you guys think?
Sorry, Tanya. I was just going to say, I would say yes. It's also a little bit, it's a little bit too, I would say it's a little too emphasized, especially with the kind of, the line that Sonny says, saying I don't understand, who would go and, kill people for other people or something, or risk your life for people you don't even know and everything. It's all about family and all that. And then it just kind of feels like it's a little too on the nose and a little too pointed to show the growth of Michael. I don't know. Tiny, what about you?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's too on the nose. Mm-hmm. It's a little hammy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't hate it or anything. It's not the worst creative decision, but it was too on the nose.
Yeah.
I love seeing all of them together, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that it what sells it for me and makes it less of an obstruction to the movie is that kind of button on it, that kind of transition to the modern day where he's sitting there alone and he's lost everything. I think that's what kind of makes it work a little bit more for me, but it is very kind of direct and a little obvious. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do we have anything else to say about The Godfather Part II?
No, I think I'm good.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Sweet. All right. Yeah. Well, that's our review of The Godfather Part 2. Since it was my pick, let's go with Ben and then Tiny. Ben, what would you give it, a thumbs up or thumbs down? And would you put it on your great movies list?
Yeah, I would say thumbs up. I think there's more positives than negatives with this. Again, I don't subscribe to the notion that this is better than part 2. They're better than part 1. Sorry. I would kind of be interested to talk to someone that does think that, because I don't think I know anyone personally that does. And yeah, I would put it on my great movies list. I think I don't know how often I'll go back to rewatching this, because again, the runtime is just a lot. But I mean, it's still great. It's got plenty of worthwhile aspects. So yeah, on my great movies list.
Nice. Tiny, how about you?
Yeah, I gave it 4 stars, and I definitely a thumbs up from me. It is a really good movie. It's pretty great. I'm actually not going to put it on a great movies list for me.
Interesting.
And I think the reason is because the first one's already there. And that movie's basically perfect, like we've been saying. And there's a lot to draw from in the gangster organized crime genre. You have to have The Godfather on that list. But I don't know that we need a second entry from that franchise on that list. So in that kind of thread, I think what I would pick to replace it is, I know it's not on this list. It's not on Ebert's list. I wanted to stick with kind of a gangster organized crime movie, and this one's kind of underrated. It is Running Scared from 2006.
Oh, wow.
Kind of an odd poll, I know. Paul Walker and Vera Farmiga, Chaz Palminteri. That movie, in my opinion, is very underrated. At least for most of the people. Most people, I think, haven't even seen it. But it's got a 7.3 rating on IMDb. But that's a pretty unique and kind of a different take on organized crime. And it's that movie's a lot better than I ever would have thought. I remember saying, it's a Paul Walker movie. I was like, it's probably not going to be very good. And then I saw it and I was like, holy shit, this is a damn good movie. So if you haven't seen Running Scared, I highly recommend it. It's probably going to be a lot better than you think it is.
I have not seen that Running Scared, but I've seen the 1986 Running Scared with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines, which is really good, believe it or not.
Nice.
I've only seen pieces of that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, Tiny, you recommending Running Scared to me. We may have watched it at work when we worked nights together. But
possibly, yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that movie's incredible. I honestly, when you were kind of doing your preamble with your pick, I honestly thought I was so confident that you were going to say A Bronx Tale, with Chaz Palminteri and directed by De Niro, which is a movie that I should revisit at some point because I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I remember enjoying it.
Also a great movie, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I would give it a thumbs up, and I would put it on my great movies list because as many kind of critiques and issues as I had with the structure of it, or at least in the sense of the cohesion of both narratives, really, I still it is still an incredible movie. like I said, it's to judge it against The Godfather is tough because The Godfather is absolutely insanely good, but The Godfather Part II is good and better than a lot of other movies. So yeah, I would do thumbs up and on my list. So
cool.
Yeah. All right. So are we ready for movie 3 to kind of wrap up with our third review?
Yep.
All right, Tiny, this was your pick. It's Dark City. Do you want to go ahead and intro it for us and let us know why you picked it?
Yes. The plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is a man struggles with memories of his past, which include a wife he cannot remember and a nightmarish world no one else ever seems to wake up from. this came out in 1998. I wanted to pick a kind of a newer, more recent movie that's on the list. Like I said earlier, Ebert has a lot of older movies on the list, which is great.
Yeah.
But we've been picking a lot of the older ones lately, and so I wanted to kind of pick something newer. I saw this movie years and years and years ago. It wasn't when it came out, but I was maybe a teenager in my late teens or early 20s last time I saw this, and I didn't follow it that well. I may have like fallen asleep during it or something. And so I didn't really remember it that well. So I kind of wanted to revisit it again and see how good it is. It's got a 7.6 rating on IMDb, which is pretty good. So I was just curious to see how I would react to it again. Yeah.
Nice. And Ben, what's your history with Dark City, and how did you feel about it on this viewing?
I had no history of it.
Nice.
I had never even really heard of it, other than just browsing through the Ebert list. And I thought that this was pretty interesting. I think there are some really interesting sci-fi elements to it, some really interesting noir elements. Noir is kind of a genre that I inherently like more often than not. It's not a genre that I find myself going to very often, but it's still one that I really, really like a lot. So I liked the kind of melding of those two genres together pretty well. But there are still some issues with it that I have that we'll get into, but still some really interesting concepts and a really interesting sci-fi story.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I saw Dark City years and years and years ago. In particular, I believe Tiny, I think when we were like teenagers, I think that you had recommended to me, or maybe I saw it on IMDb and everyone was saying like, oh, everyone loves The Matrix, but check out Dark City. And I remember, I thought it was fine when I saw it as a teenager. I didn't really commit much of it to memory. And seeing it this time, it felt a little bit, it felt like a movie that I should enjoy. Like it should be up my alley. It's sci-fi, it's noir, it has a pretty good cast, a very intriguing concept. The design of it is really cool. But I was kind of turned off by it a little bit, and it was just kind of, it kind of was a muddled sci-fi noir movie for me. And I know that, I think I read that Alex Proyas had lost like a fight with the studio about putting like a voiceover narration in it, and that was to its detriment and everything. And it really felt to me kind of like it kind of felt like a I'm gonna use a common meme, but it was like, oh, I want to watch Blade Runner. We have Blade Runner at home, and it's Dark City. Same with The Matrix, but it just didn't really do much for me. It was cool seeing Rufus Sewell in it. I thought that was cool, and William Hurt, who recently passed, is solid as the kind of noirish guy, but honestly, I couldn't really connect with it. I felt like it was a little not really as detailed as I would have liked it to be. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I also think, as far as performances, Jennifer Connelly had very little to do.
Yeah.
She's just so reactionary to everything. She just didn't have much to work with,
Yeah.
I think for me, I do like this movie. I'm positive on it. It's not great, but it's I give it a ton of points for originality. I've never seen a movie that follows this thread and has a storyline like this. And I also give it a lot of points for the visuals. It's a very practical movie. CGI was pretty well established by this point, and was being used pretty regularly in movies. And there's not a lot of it in this. It's pretty practical and very set heavy and everything. It's not over reliant on CGI. And so I give it a lot of credit for that, and I think it's I think it deserves credit for that. I think it is interesting to see Rufus Sewell in there to go back to the performances. I think Alex Proyas wanted someone who was pretty unknown because the character doesn't really know who he is that well, doesn't know who anyone is. He's kind of lost, and he wanted he didn't want some big movie star in that role, and I thought that was a good choice. And Rufus Sewell does well. But yeah, mostly just the originality and the visuals I think are pretty top notch in this movie. But there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't work all that well. I think for me, some of the like terminology is a little over the top, and some of the Kiefer Sutherland is kind of flirting with the overtopness just a little bit.
Yeah.
He's not that bad, but he's getting close. I think it's mostly with his delivery of the word tuning.
Yeah.
He's just, it's like, dude, what do you turn British just to say that word?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of funny, but just some of the other stuff is just a little hammy.
Yeah. Kiefer Sutherland was making some choices. Yep.
He ran with those choices.
Yeah.
It's always funny to me to see him in his like pre-Jack Bauer roles.
Yeah.
And this is almost the exact opposite of Jack Bauer.
Although I will say there is at least one scene I think where I think he actually says the lines like we're running out of time or something, and it's like it's like the proto Jack Bauer. I'm like, whoa, okay, yeah. Let's get the clock rolling. Cool. Yeah, Ben, how did you feel about Dark City? Did we talk about it? Did you give your take?
Yeah, just kind of overall. Yeah, I really like the ideas at play here, especially like the way that memories are being used. I think that's a really and especially the way that memories are used as a way to explore what makes humans human. I think that is really interesting. I wish it would have expanded on that a little bit more or spent a little bit more time with it. Excuse me, at least up until the end. But I think it's really interesting. Yeah. I think I texted you guys this after I had watched it, but the meme of the angry guy in the crowd or whatever who's staring at the camera, and he's and I had basically said it was like all the people that worked on Dark City after watching The Matrix a year later, because it's crazy how many similarities there are between this and The Matrix. Maybe it's because I've seen The Matrix so many times, but just the way that this movie plays with the idea of control and breaking free of this oppressive society and the green color palette and just all of that is and the way that people are kind of interchangeable. It's funny. And I think I read the Ebert essay, and I think he said that the sets that were used in this were used on The Matrix, or some of them.
I was just going to say, the trivia says a number of pieces of the set, including those used for the rooftop chase, were sold to the production of The Matrix at the end of shooting.
Yeah.
I'll
say I think the Wachowskis used it to better effect.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we can go into spoilers fairly quickly, but I do want to say that at the end of the day, like I said, Dark City seems like the type of movie that I would be kind of primed for, but it also just feels like it's missing something. And I'm going to say something that is going to be controversial. But I'm not a big fan of The Crow, honestly. It wasn't like a big part of my life growing up, and it wasn't something that I really connected with when I rewatched it. I visually, I think it's interesting and everything, but I'm just not a big fan of The Crow. And so I don't have that like Alex Proyas kind of admiration or anything. And at the end of the day, I kind of feel like Dark City is in some respects Total Recall without Paul Verhoeven. It's Blade Runner without Ridley Scott. It's The Matrix without the Wachowskis, and it suffers for that because I don't think it fully explores the concepts that it's playing with in a way that those other filmmakers would have and did in their own respective work. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point I hadn't thought of. I don't know that Alex Proyas was the best shepherd for this story, if you will. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anything about Alex Proyas before watching this. I learned later that he also directed I Am Legend. Matt, to speak to your what you had said, I've never seen The Crow, so I can't really speak to how this works with or without that. But one of you, I forget who, had mentioned the voiceover in the beginning. I didn't totally mind that, but I have come to learn that it's kind of a source of contention, and people say that it almost like ruins the movie. I don't know about that. I think from what I remember, they just have the opening narration at the beginning of the movie, and then there isn't really anything after that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
You're correct, but I think the point of contention comes at the fact that the opening narration just straight up spoils a plot element of it. Like, it spoils the fact that, sorry for spoilers, but Kiefer Sutherland is working with the aliens, and that they are aliens, and it kind of lays things out a little bit too much, and it kind of, for me, it kind of deflates any of the like mystery or anything for me. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like the movie really doesn't need it. I think and it gives away too much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we want to talk specifics and spoilers? Do we have anything to talk in spoilers?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and spoil Dark City. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer, and when we come back, we're going to be spoiling Dark City from 1998. And the trailer is just music. Spoilers for Dark City. We didn't really talk about the titular darkness of the city. I liked that as a kind of plot thread where they kind of realize like, oh yeah, shit's not right. So do you remember being in daytime? I kind of like that as a concept, but again, the movie doesn't really explore its concepts quite enough for my liking. So what did you guys think of Dark City in spoilers?
Yeah, I feel like the idea of, the mystery of darkness and the whole whatever the beach was called, I can't remember, those were fascinating, and I think it's interesting that the aliens kind of put those in there. So that was good. I enjoyed that. And I also the aesthetics of the aliens themselves. What did he call them? The visitors? I can't remember.
Yeah,
he had a moniker for them, but anyways, it was a little. Their aesthetic was just a little plain, just not super imaginative. Like it's so easy to just kind of like throw a formal hat on a villain and call it a day, and give him a long coat and you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's just kind of it seemed a little lazy, maybe.
Yeah. Ben, what did you think?
Yeah, I liked the look of the visitors, and the way, especially the set where they have their lair or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And to speak on the beach or the island or whatever, I can't remember what it's called, but I liked the final scene between Rufus Sewell and Jennifer Connelly. I liked the kind of emotionality behind that. That was a good way to end the movie, to show that they could still end up together even though they are essentially strangers.
And that's all well and good, but I just kind of feel like for me it didn't really it just didn't connect with me on like the most enjoyable part of it for me, or the closest I came to being connected to it on a story level and everything, was the kind of reveal that they're in space, and the kind of like the way that they dispatch with some of the guys, like the way like William Hurt goes out is really interesting. I think, doesn't he fly out into space? I think someone flies out into space, and I thought that was really cool. But yeah, it's just I don't know. Maybe I have a little bit of like Matrix bias, because that's clearly the superior movie of the two, and I can't really get past I can't really find a road into Dark City for me. That wasn't an intentional pun, and I'm actually pretty proud of it, honestly. So,
do you remember how to get to Dark City?
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. I also, one kind of contention I had with the movie was, I think the onus for the experiment, if you want to call it that, was just still a little too unclear. Like I think it's an interesting concept that they were using memories and swapping them around to see what makes a human tick and how they work, but I just don't know. I don't know to what end. Like I understand that they're dying, and do they want to occupy the human race and take them over? Do they want to emulate them? I don't. And I understand there's nothing wrong with leaving some mystery, but it just seems like a whole shit ton of work for something, an unclear goal, I guess.
I
don't know. It was just weird.
I didn't totally connect how doing this whole memory swap experiment thing connected to saving their race. I don't understand where those two plot points meet,
right.
Maybe it's just because I wasn't paying attention close enough, but I feel like that could have been expanded upon a little bit more.
Yeah, or even made to be the focus of the movie. I mean, if they're going to kind of spoil that in the opening narration, which I understand is like after the fact, that was something in post-production, I'm sure. But if it's going to make that be the kind of thesis statement of the movie, that they're doing whatever for whatever means to save their whatever, I wish that it had been explored a lot more and been a lot less vague, because then I could find some kind of narrative through line with it where I can have some kind of emotional connection to it, but it wasn't there, and I wasn't there for it. It didn't work for me. So, yeah.
I also didn't totally understand until the end. And again, maybe this is just because I wasn't paying attention close enough, but I didn't understand, were they doing this for the entire human race and doing this for everyone every night or every so often or whatever? But it's obviously it's revealed later that it's just a collection of a sample of some of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of confused most of the time about exactly how many of these people Kiefer Sutherland was running around and swapping memories out with.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Dark City?
I think I'm good.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah. We'll go around the horn again. Tiny, since this was your pick, we'll save you for last. I can Ben, let's start with you. What did you oh my god, thumbs up or thumbs down, and would you put it on your great movies list?
Thumbs up, I think. Like I said, I like these two genres and how they're melded together here. I like the aesthetics of it. I just, like I said, I don't know if the ideas were executed to my liking. I don't think I would put it on my great movies list. And obviously The Matrix is right there to be put on my great movies list, and it will be, but that's not what I'm going to pick.
Oh, nice.
I'm actually going to go in a totally different direction because full disclosure, this was going to be the movie that I was going to pick for next time, but then I looked and it is not on the list. And I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but I've got a little bone to pick with you, Mr. Ebert.
Mm-hmm.
The movie would be It Happened One Night from 1934, which is considered to be not only one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made, but one of just the greatest movies ever made. And I would agree with it. It's amazing. And it's not on the list, and I don't understand why. So even though the two movies have absolutely nothing to do with each other, It Happened One Night would be my pick to replace Dark City. And forewarning, The Matrix will eventually make it onto my great movies list. I just don't know when yet.
Nice. And I will say, I mean, devil's advocate, they do have one thing in common. They both apparently have things to do with night. So there we go. Nice. Yeah, that's a really good I've never seen It Happen One Night, and I'm very surprised that it's not on the list either, because I would have loved to well, I mean, I can still watch it, but yeah, that's definitely on my radar for a movie to watch, with or without Ebert's approval. For my rating, I would give this honestly a thumbs down. Just because I'm someone who loves science fiction, and I love when science fiction introduces a concept and explores it in a way that stokes my fire and makes me think about the themes that it's exploring, the ideas that it's exploring. I felt like Dark City was a little too empty for me, and it just felt, it was visually interesting, but empty for me in a lot of other ways that bear a more heavy criteria for my enjoyment of movies. So definitely a thumbs down, and would not be on my favorite my great movies list, but I'll go the obvious route and put The Matrix on there, because I think the Wachowskis did an incredible job with what they were going for with The Matrix, and it's incredible. And I'm curious to read Ebert's review of The Matrix and try to figure out why he would put Dark City on the list over The Matrix, because The Matrix isn't on the list. So yeah, that's mine. Tiny, round us out with your thumbs up or thumbs down, and would it be on your list?
Yeah, it's well said, Matt. That's a good.
Thank you.
Good, well said. I like that. I'm kind of like Ben. I'm going to give it a reluctant thumbs up.
Nice.
Because I do, again, I give it a lot of points for originality and visuals. I think it's worth a watch. I don't think it's a great movie, but I think it's worth a watch for sci-fi fans. Nice. I gave it 3 stars. So I'm definitely positive on it. I would not put it on my great movies list. I think, again, the obvious choice is The Matrix, but I was kind of thinking about what to replace it with, and I was thinking in terms of I know they don't have to relate to each other, but I was thinking in terms of memory loss and memory issues. And so I think I would replace it with Christopher Nolan's movie from 2000, Memento, starring Guy Pearce.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's on Matt's great movies list.
Yes, it is. Oh yeah, I did. Did I add it to replace one movie?
Yeah, I want to say maybe Mulholland Drive. Maybe.
I think you're right. Yep.
I'll have to consult my letterbox list.
Nice.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Definitely go back and check that one out. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes to Ben's letterbox list there.
Fun fact real quick. After I had read the Ebert essay about this was his number 1 movie of 1998.
Ooh. Wow. Yeah, sure.
I forget now what the other contenders were, but yeah.
Wow, that's something. That's really interesting. Huh. Well, more power to him. Yeah.
To each their own.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, those are our reviews, and before we close out the episode, we're going to be picking the selections for the next Ebert's Great Movies List episode, which will be part 15. And I'm trying to remember how we do this in chronological order from release date, I guess. So Ben, since you had the earliest in this one, why don't you hit us with your pick for part 15?
All right. So my pick is, again, it happened one night, but it's not. You guys, if you want to do extra credit, you can watch that on your own, and we can discuss next time. But my actual pick is actually one that we discussed, I believe, on Patreon last time we did one of these, which is from 1931, M from Fritz Lang.
Nice. Okay.
Plot description? Okay. Give me one sec to pull it up on IMDb, because the one on the Just Watch website is long.
Oh, yeah. And I believe
I can tell you it is streaming on HBOMax and Canopy and Criterion Channel and a couple other places that I have never heard of.
Nice.
Plot description: when the police in a German city are unable to catch a child murderer, other criminals join in the manhunt. So, just a rollicking good family fun time.
Nice. That's exciting, because I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen a Fritz Lang movie. So, yeah. Nice. So going in chronological order, mine is next because I had The Godfather Part II. I was originally going to do a specific movie to kind of round out a trilogy of movies, if you will, since The Godfather Part 3 isn't on it. I was going to go with another Coppola movie, but last minute changed it up to Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia from 1999. Plot summary: an epic mosaic of interrelated characters in search of love, forgiveness, and meaning in the San Fernando Valley. And Magnolia is available to stream on Canopy and Paramount Plus. It's also available to rent pretty much anywhere you rent movies. And Yeah, I'm excited about this because I recently bought it on Vudu. And also, I have not seen this movie since I was maybe 17. So I'm curious to see how an adult brain, with an asterisk, feels about it. So Magnolia.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Nice.
True story. I have been toying around with picking that one. Not necessarily this time, but very soon. So
Nice.
thank you for taking that off my plate.
Nice.
It's one of the few PTA movies that I've never seen. So I'm
that's
excited.
awesome.
Wow, sweet.
Nice. Awesome. So Tiny, how about you round us out with your pick for next time?
Yes. So my pick is 1985's The Color Purple. I've never seen it before.
Okay.
So I've always wanted to see it. The IMDb plot description says, a black Southern woman struggles to find her identity after suffering abuse from her father and others over 4 decades. I've never seen it. Always wanted to see it. I know it's a pretty legendary movie directed by Spielberg, starring Oprah. I've just always wanted to see it, and that's pretty much my only reason for picking it. It's streaming on HBOMax.
Sweet. Nice.
I've also never seen it, and we haven't talked about Spielberg yet on here.
Oh my God, we haven't talked about Spielberg at all, have we?
That's pretty wild.
That's insane. Yeah. I watched The Color Purple maybe 5 years ago, so I'm very interested to see it again because I thought it was okay. But yeah, I'm excited for that. We'll probably do that next month at some point. But yeah, those are our picks. M, Magnolia, and The Color Purple. So look forward to that. Do we have any parting thoughts before we head out? Oh, I should say, Ben, do you have anything to plug for your website, for themoviestate.com, or anything going on?
Yeah, sure. So by the time this episode will have come out, I will have posted a interview with a comics writer and artist. Her name's Emily McGovern. She wrote and drew this comic that I actually just reviewed recently called 12% Dread, which is really fantastic and really funny. Nice. And so I'm excited. As of this recording, I haven't talked with her yet, but I'm excited to get to do that. And you guys will be able to read that soon. Other than that, I'm hoping to get some kind of review out there for the League of Their Own reboot thing on Amazon Prime, which is coming out on the 12th. Hopefully I'll have something out by the time it starts. So if not, don't blame me.
Sure. Nice. Yeah, awesome. Well, great work as always. Also, you were a guest on. So if you guys missed Ben's insight in our Nope review, Ben, you were a guest on our friend Brent's podcast, Awake in the Dark, to talk Nope. I listened to that and really enjoyed it. So I was glad to be able to hear your thoughts on the movie since you can make it for the recording.
Yeah, that was really fun. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. So link to all that is in the show notes and everything. What I've been up to is I wrote, here in a couple of weeks or next week, by the time you're listening to this, I'll have a review that is going to be kind of scathing of Summering. And then, just Patreon has a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be resuming the Severance episode reviews and everything. And then I'm going to, I also have Stephen King stuff on there. So check that out, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. That is it for episode 378. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And I look forward to chatting with you guys again. So that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. Because it's kind of the same with, I would assume that it's the same with like television shows that have long-running storylines and stuff. Like Vince Gilligan knows what is going to happen in Breaking Bad, so he's going to have like clue in the directors, or he's going to have them perform in a certain way.
Right.
There's also How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Oh my God. We can't talk about that show.
No, not until we get the commentary track for that.
No. Are there movies? I was thinking about this the other day. Are there movies and are there books where you could figure out the ending? People often, people are always like, "Oh, I figured out the ending," and it's like, well, yeah. You took a guess and you were correct.
Yeah.
But are there, I guess,
like any specific examples for me?
Like, yeah, that you know of, like books where if you did the detective work, if you made a board, you could figure out who the killer was.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely are movies and books that I have had that experience where I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen. Like I know, like I'm noticing the beats of it and I know who's going to do this and all that. And I can't think of any particular examples because I always do find that a little bit obnoxious when people are like, oh, it was predictable. Like, okay, you say it was predictable, like be more specific, like with your criticism of it.
Yeah, right.
But then on the other hand, when I find a movie or story in whatever medium predictable, I often find it forgettable. And like I can't point to a specific thing. Yeah. How about you?
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.